And okay, welcome to this Kroxylicious Community Sync call on the 23rd of April 2026. Let me just put a link to the agenda in the documents. Okay, so there's a link to the agenda. Let me just share. So hopefully you're seeing a tab. So please add your names to the attendee lists. Look at the right date for a start. So yeah, please add any agenda items you wish to see discussed to our agenda. Let's get started with the first item, which is issues tagged with discuss sync. So the first one is our server-side apply conversation.
Yeah, so
okay. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Oh, so for people who are unaware, we have this issue that has cropped up a few times that sometimes people need additional annotations on their services to work with cloud technology and switch different features on and off. And I think in one case, they required the annotations for the service to even be created. And this issue was about, I think, pausing to think about whether our current server-side apply is helping people enough, or whether we need to implement what we originally proposed, which is the custom resources. You can, in the design, you can specify infrastructure annotations to attach to the service and routes.
Yeah. Just a little bit more on that. The original idea of us adopting server-side apply was to try and avoid a pattern that some of us had seen in other projects where there's this ever-ending drip feeding of fields. So like you've got there's a call for a field from a pod template. So you add you expose one field from a pod template to your CR. And then there's another, and before you know it, you've exposed, the entire contents of a pod template through your project CR. So that was the line we were trying. That was a kind of tension we were trying to resolve here by having server-side apply. But as Rob Young has just alluded to, there are use cases where what users want is the ability to, for GitOps purposes or things like that, is to express everything in GitOps in their CR, which is checked into Git, be able to apply that and have the operator stand up the whole thing without having to have this extra phase of annotating what the server has, what the operator has stood up. I did a little bit of looking around to see if there was a way of resolving this tension. I kind of drew a blank, really. I don't know if anybody else has had any further thoughts on this.
Not really, just that it would, if we stuck with server-side apply only, it would seem like quite a scary thing for us to have to document and say, if you want to annotate your service, this is going to be the guaranteed service naming. Maybe you can get your server-side apply ready in advance, but yeah.
Yeah. Personally, I think that we have to, on a case-by-case basis, decide whether server-side applies is the right approach for a use case, or whether we have to, supplement our Kube API. And so I think in a case like labels and annotations, I think, we've received a strong enough signal from users that that's the solution that they want.
Yeah, I think this is the case for labels and annotations. At least it's fairly clear that this is a problem that people are encountering in practice. So yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, I don't think it's possible for us to define a kind of crisp rule which will help us make a decision going forward about which way we kind of jump on these. I see things like taints and things. There's bound to be requests for things like that. I guess we just discuss them as they arise and try and make a decision.
Yeah, I think we just take it from a case-by-case basis from here. You're right, there's not going to be like a nice bright line between sort of what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. But I think if we do it based on what feedback we're getting, then at least we're not doing a whole bunch of work that we know that nobody's benefiting from, and at least we sort of understand we can reason about the API that we're building out sort of carefully in the process.
Okay. Anybody, anything else they want to add to this conversation? So do we have a decision there that everybody's happy with? Silence is yes.
Yeah, I was about to say that.
Wow, the proposal was already there, right?
Some
of them were
well,
already
I suppose there was the original proposal which kind of sketched that out. I don't know whether it's the right shape or not. I don't know whether it's something we want to discuss again.
Yeah, happy to put up a little proposal anyway, just
yeah,
if people decide they want that. It might be an opportunity to say we do this on a case-by-case basis and what we're worried about.
Trying to say, can't think of the right formulation of words. Is that good enough? Okay, was there anything else? Tagged sync discussion. Nope, it was just that one. I should get rid of the label. Okay, so issue triage and PR triage. Does anybody have a so we want to make sure we leave time to discuss the proposal. Does anybody have any strong feelings about whether we just dive into issue triage or PR triage? It feels like we've got quite a lot
I'd
of
shuffle
PR.
proposal discussion up higher than those two. I think talking design proposal stuff in this call is more exciting than triaging issues.
Okay, let's do that then.
I would also actually suggest that we move the triage to after the any other business, given that triage tends to suck up all available time.
So yeah, it was me that put this one on the agenda. So just to let people know that I'm hoping to revise the content. This is obviously sort of quite a few months old. I think our thoughts have sort of been evolving in the meantime. So we had a discussion about it in the last sort of week or so. And I think, you know, judging from sort of what that sort of direction of that discussion, that we're moving towards sort of explicitly versioning both configuration sort of APIs, so the configuration objects that users write as YAML, and also the APIs that developers implement. Basically they're like service provider interfaces, aren't they? But so yeah, I've got some work that does both of those pieces in various states of readiness. So I'm just like sort of trying to put that together so that, you know, I can see all the bits work. And then I'm hoping to sort of, circle back to this proposal and update it, but just an opportunity for people to shout out now if they think that direction of travel is wrong. Or, you know, want to discuss any of those things synchronously that we've sort of been discussing in the last week or so.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, well, I shall proceed on that basis and might not manage to get it done this week. If not, then maybe early next week. Thanks.
Okay, I look forward to it. Do we want to look through the other open proposals at the moment?
That might not be a bad idea. Just we've got quite a
few built up. Okay, so let's do that. Share this tab instead. Requests. Okay. We have got quite a lot. Shall I just take them from the top? So. Proxy protocol v2 authority-based routing. Is
we've got Harishab on the call if he wants to just sort of introduce it briefly.
Super.
Yeah. So this is something which like earlier we were working on a HE proxy protocol identification. From there, and then we kind of see some like one of the customer looking for that via the NLV, if we are putting a service outside of this, then via the gateway cannot, the TLS cannot terminate there itself, and gateway has also to be, gateway or the proxy also needs to be configured with the TLS. So that was something, the problem statement from the customer side. Because in general web services, there is an option where NLV can terminate the TLS, and then you can have the web services being because in general, the HTTP request header carries the information of the host. In this particular case, the host information is missing from the Kafka protocol side, and that's why the TLS configuration is required. So it is something that might be useful where NLB terminates the TLS, but it kinds of pass on the PPV2 header, which is essentially the host information directly to the TLS, to the Kroxylicious application, and application identifies the virtual cluster from there essentially. So that is the whole idea about this PPV2 based routing essentially.
Right. So let me just see if I understood that right. So in this scenario, TLS terminates at the load balancer, and then you use this proxy protocol V2 to transport the host name information to the Kroxylicious proxy.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Right. Okay. Great. Sounds useful. It's not something I haven't seen proxy protocol V2 myself at all before this proposal came up.
Other than that, like in general, I think AWS NLB supports, HA proxy supports the PPV2 headers. Envoy by default does not support, requires some custom custom filtration at Envoy layer. So many people uses this service mesh architecture, and Envoy is always there. There also it becomes a little useful essentially. So yeah, but there it will require an extra effort from the customer side that Envoy also sends the PPV2 header to Kroxylicious essentially.
Okay. So are you waiting for feedback on this proposal at the moment? Is that the next step?
It's a nice to have. It's not something that I think that we are changing as on a priority or something. But yeah, something nice to have. Again, we can look for like if there are more people looking for such thing, that might be the something. Also, I'm not sure like we have this identifies node strategy as a like it's more on a configuration experience that we always have this mutually exclusive configuration on a same level rather than making it an extensible plugin where the node identification strategies can also be extended as plugins itself. So yeah, this is more on a different side where like I raised one issue as well for that essentially where we can make the node identification strategy as a plugin because many customer want lot of customizations like they want direct node ID to mapping kind of a thing for all those things. They are okay with those kind of troublesome like a verbose configuration as well, but maybe something which enables people to extend the identification proxy to a larger level essentially.
Yeah, there's quite a lot to think about here, isn't there?
Yeah.
I mean, I think we could. I mean, I think I've already looked at this proposal, and yeah, I'm happy doing this. I think the pluggability thing is kind of orthogonal. I think we can make progress on this. I think yeah, the pluggability aspect is something that probably requires a bit more thought, figuring out what the actual API for that would look like. Whereas, yeah, this is a little bit of functionality that I've kind of always wanted. It was kind of why I was keen on the HA proxy stuff originally, and never kind of quite got enough time to sort of focus on implementing that. So I think it would be great to have this basically.
So are you advocating, Tom, that we split this proposal up into simpler parts?
So I think this is already just proposing. This isn't proposing like the pluggability part. That's right, isn't it, Harisha?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I hadn't absorbed.
Yeah,
that.
the pluggability is in an issue.
Right. Okay, got it. Thank you.
In the core repo.
Which I'm not averse to that either. I think that would be interesting to look at, but I just think, yeah, it would be good to just, if we can get this done as a small, sort of fairly self-contained piece, then why not?
Yeah, no, we shouldn't be blocked on the pluggability.
Sounds good. Okay. Yeah, I'd like to review this proposal and send some feedback, but on what's been discussed here, it sounds like a very useful enhancement. Thank you. Anything else on this one? Okay, let's move on. Okay, add sidecar injection webhook proposal.
Yeah, so this is something that I'm proposing. Basically, this is obviously like a Kubernetes specific thing. We've got the operator already, which sort of works great if you're sort of wanting to stand up a proxy kind of, I guess, in front of a cluster that, you know, is maybe on the same Kubernetes cluster. Whereas this is, you know, sort of quite a different deployment pattern where we're looking at injecting a proxy basically on a per client basis using a pod admission webhook in Kubernetes to mutate the pods as they get created. So it sort of exists within the control plane of the Kubernetes cluster. We get to mutate the pods. So if they're annotated appropriately, then we will decide to add a proxy as a sidecar container to the pod, in the expectation that the Kafka client application will connect through the proxy. So this is a bit of work that I've got some changes locally that I've not pushed up yet. And this is the proposal sort of describing that. I need to revise the proposal a little bit, I think, following some comments from Rob earlier this week, but I think he's the only person that's taken a look so far. One of the sort of open questions about it is exactly what the sort of the trust model is. So by which I mean, you've got the sort of the application person that's in charge of the Kafka application, who might not be the same person as is controlling the webhook and the configuration of the proxy that gets injected. So there's, you know, depending on, you know, sort of the expectations and requirements of those two people, you know, the person that controls the proxy sort of configuration might want to reserve you know, sort of aspects of that configuration for themselves, or they might want to delegate it to the person that controls the Kafka application. So there's sort of quite a lot of stuff in that document that describes that. I'm not sure that's necessarily something that needs to be delivered, you know, sort of right out the gate. I think some of this stuff could be deferred till later. Anyway, that's a brief summary of it. If people are able to have a look, I know Rob's looked, as I mentioned, but I don't think anyone else has yet.
Yeah, it's in my queue to take a look at, Tom. I will try and get you some feedback on this week. That sounds very interesting now. Any other comments on this one? Should leave a comment. Should have left that on the previous one.
I should probably undraft it at this point because yeah, I am looking for feedback, so I'll do that now.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Micrometer configuration. Should we, since Sam can't make this call, should we skip over that one, the next two?
That makes sense.
Okay, next one is back to Tom again. Are you working on Kroxy configuration?
Yeah, so this is related to the Kroxy 1.0 thing that I was just talking about. So one of the sort of the two missing pieces that I think we've identified there is around explicitly versioning the APIs. So the two sort of APIs that we like commonly sort of think about are the APIs of people writing plugin implementations and the API between those plugin implementations and the end user, which is basically the configuration API. And at the moment, we've just got a single configuration file, which what is acceptable there depends on what plugins are available on the class path. So it's difficult to provide a good experience for people trying to write that configuration file at the moment. Basically, the only way they can validate it is to try to start the proxy with the config file and see how it falls over. So this is aiming to make those configuration sort of objects. Firstly, it makes them a file per plugin implementation, which basically means that you can then start using something like JSON schema to validate each of those individual files because they've each now got a single schema associated with them. And it requires a particular directory layout for how those files are arranged on disk. And it's got all sorts of validations sort of described in there. Because by doing this, you go from having like the natural JSON sort of tree structure. You've got the possibility of creating a directed graph. So you have to do a little bit of validation. But it enables all sorts of like other things as well. So I'm kind of glossing over sort of quite a few of the things there. It's quite a big proposal. It will be quite a big change, I think, to how the configuration currently works. But I think it actually delivers quite a lot of useful functionality. And I think it's a useful sort of stepping stone to have towards like, sort of future things. So I can't really sort of fully describe it without taking up quite a lot more of the meeting. So if it's, like I say, it's big, but I'd really appreciate it if people could take a look.
So on this, like, I feel like it's trying to rebuild what Kubernetes offers, essentially, like the entire state reconciliation part across different deployments. And I'm not sure, like, if we are trying to rebuild that part, and like, or whether one should suggest that leveraging Kubernetes for having the similar experience, essentially. Like how many customers want this kind of experience outside of Kubernetes will be the right measure of value, essentially.
Yeah, so it absolutely is sort of based on some of the patterns that you see in the Kubernetes API. That's because I think in many ways they're kind of good patterns. Like they might not be to everyone's taste. I completely accept that. But I think the problems that they're intended to solve are actually problems that we see appearing for the proxy just on its own. So you're right that it might not be to everyone's taste. But yeah, I think you've got to sort of weigh it in in the balance between, sort of maybe not being to everyone's taste, but I think we have sort of had people who, for example, have struggled to sort of figure out how to write the config file, and there's no like editor support for that, for example. The complete lack of explicit versioning means that, okay, so I've got this file, and it's just like, how do we evolve that? How do we like make breaking changes? How do we make clear that? How does the user make clear, well, I've written this against, version 1, but the proxy now supports, version 2. Those are, without versioning the API explicitly, you start to struggle to evolve the API, you start to struggle to give good error messages when things don't work, and so on and so forth. So, I think there are sort of benefits as well as like the sort of the drawback if you're, sort of opinionatedly against things that look like Kubernetes. There is actually a further benefit, which is obviously we've got the operator already. We're sort of quite committed to Kubernetes as a platform. And so actually having something that is somewhat similar means that it's actually sort of less jarring. It's like the familiar patterns for those people that do use Kubernetes are valuable in themselves. So yeah, I don't know if you've actually read the whole thing, Harisha, or if you're just sort of basing your comment on the summary that I've given.
Yeah, mainly I have gone through a little bit from the initial summary on the page itself. Essentially, to me, it looks like I'm not sure whether as a Kroxylicious team, what Kubernetes solves, what Helm chart solves, we should build in our application essentially, because they are basically built for these purposes only. Like a Helm charts is built for release versioning management or all those things. We are trying to version, and the same concept of IAC exists essentially for people to track what was there before, what is now new. It will be a whole lot of effort essentially. We will be stretching into the direction where we are trying to build our own Kubernetes in an application world essentially. So from effort perspective, it looks very, very long to me. It's definitely a very good thing, but at the same time, the effort perspective, it's a lot stretchier, and maybe I'm not sure whether based on we doing a proxy level work, whether it fits a lot into the Kafka proxy domain or not. Actually, does it? I'm not sure. I'm just putting it more on the it's mainly the concern is coming from the effort perspective. It is going to roll out into a lot more. It will unfold in many more things essentially, not just a small file related thing, because the reconciliation itself will be a big job where all files references are there, and then in between they getting updated and all those things happens. But there are applications which already supports I don't know whether traditionally when the MySQL, Postgres or any databases also did provide some of a fragmentation in the configuration file. From a pluggability perspective, they used to load, especially the supervisor used to load all the configuration, and they used to provide a single into the single application. But yeah, I'm not sure in the today's world when there is Kubernetes and then there on top of that there is a Helm charts, whether it is still pretty much. Yeah, I mean, it's more about whether word has moved or not towards Kubernetes a lot or not. Is it making sense or is it going orthogonal? I'm not.
Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying, and it's not what you're saying makes sense, and it's not wrong. It's just ultimately it's kind of like how do you balance that against sort of some of the points that I've been making? Unless somebody can describe a simpler alternative, or we decide that some of those sort of issues that I alluded to we should not try and fix them, then what else is there to do? Do you see what I mean? Like, I'm quite happy to consider like other alternatives that are simpler, but the trade-offs would appear to be either find something simpler that fixes all the problems, or decide which problems we're not going to fix.
I see. Yeah. I still have to look into, probably my comment might be a little naive right now, but I have not gone through their entire proposal especially from the problem perspective. But yeah, from a solutioning perspective, it looked more like like what Kubernetes by default provides as a reconciliation mechanism. The same is what we are trying to achieve here.
I need to review the proposal and give some feedback. I've got one slightly higher level question, Tom. I haven't read the proposal at the moment, so sorry if this is in there already, but when we were doing the operator work, about 18 months ago, one of the problems that you were grappling with was how to reuse validation between, you've got a filter which accepts some configuration, and you were tussling with how to apply the same validation at the proxy level as at the operator level. So we'd have a single source of truth. Is that tackled as part of this proposal, or is that out of scope? So I'm talking about like the configuration that appears in the Kafka protocol filter CR.
Partly. So this is quite intentionally, because it's a big proposal already. Most of that is just trying to explain what I'm trying to do and like how I'm going to do it, and how it aims to keep sort of backwards compatibility and so on. The changes, they're not small. Anyway, partly it addresses that. So I think what I've said is that I would suggest that we use require the same version of JSON schema as the Kubernetes CRD supports. So that means that schema is sort of reusable in a CRD. But at the moment it's scoped just to the proxy. I've kind of, because it's compatible, I've kind of like said, we're going to need another proposal to talk about the consequences of this for the operator and the existing Kubernetes API. So I think there are a number of different ways that you could do that. You could just say, okay, well, we're going to stick with the existing Kubernetes APIs. We've got the Kafka protocol filter, custom resources. That I think you could make that work, but it's not sort of very sympathetic with what we're doing here, in that this sort of treats all plugins in a kind of uniform kind of a way, whereas that current sort of Kafka protocol filter custom resource kind of privileges filters above all else. So it would kind of feel a bit ugly. At the other end of the spectrum, you could use this to implement sort of an idea that we talked about at the time of being able to generate a CRD from the schema for a plugin, and make the operator kind of much more sort of unaware of like sort of plugins and so on, much more flexible, because all of a sudden then the operator would basically just be taking the contents of those custom resources and turning them into YAMLs, in a config map that's then mounted in the pod. So that's like, that's kind of like the other end of the spectrum, and there are sort of intermediate points on that spectrum as well. So I've not really like done a proper design, and I've kind of kept it out of this proposal, but it does open up some possibilities there, and I've kind of spec'd this proposal to be compatible with Kubernetes things, put it that way.
Okay, thank you for the context. Okay, do we want to say anything more about this proposal at the moment?
Just conscious of time.
Yes, that's what I was just coming to. So this call is scheduled 45 minutes, which we have just
Reached, yeah.
up. So do we want to end there, or do we want to quickly discuss Rob Young voting on design proposals? Is that something we want to squeeze in?
Sounds like something contentious. Maybe I'll take it async. I just describe it though quickly. We have quite a few proposals sitting in approved. We have our kind of rules about how many approvals things need, but it's not super clear when voting starts and ends and who's supposed to go and merge the thing. So I'll put that somewhere in Slack or somewhere else to discuss.
Okay. Thank you. And Rob Godfrey?
Yep. So obviously, and I apologize if you want on our calls earlier this week, which are internal calls, we talked about doing more stuff upstream and having a schedule of releases upstream. So I think if we're going to do that, we should publicize that and set some dates on that in the upstream community and agree those in the community call going forward.
Agreed.
So I think, again, related a bit to the Kroxy 1.0 discussion, I think we need to put a stake in the ground about when we're going to be expecting that and how many more releases before we get to Kroxy 1.0 we are expecting.
Okay, I think we are thinking about how to get the roadmap into the upstream. So using probably something like a GitHub project board where we've got our kind of high-level items up there, which will be assigned to release milestones.
Yeah.
And that will give visibility to the community about direction of travel and allow people to help influence our roadmap. The number of releases before 1.0, I'm not sure.
No, no, I'm expecting that is a discussion we should be having, and so I would like to see some expectations around dates and essentially moving towards date-based releases rather than scope-based releases, just so that we actually release reasonably frequently. But these are things we can discuss.
Of releasing often. And
yes.
Okay, anything else for today before we close? Okay, well, thank you everyone for coming. Thanks for the participation, and see you on a community call soon. Thanks all.
Thanks, Keith.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, folks.